And of course, people having their cell phones out. If they did, it wouldn't be out in the rain necessarily. I think there might be some activist groups out there, certain like BLM-ish groups out there. They're gonna, if this kid is convicted, oh yeah, I think you're gonna see something on the streets. And of course, people having their cell phones out. If they did, it wouldn't be out in the rain necessarily. Yeah, they were saying it was a cleat sharpener, something that literally doesn't exist. There's no such thing.
And there was a lot of testimony that Carmelo Anthony had his hand in a bag and was essentially threatening and saying, if you touch me and you'll find out.
I might have to eat my words. If there is a conviction, there might not be a lot of rioting or anything or shenanigans going on just because it's Texas. You don't pull that stuff in Texas. I wanted to move into, I wanted to move into some Carmelo Anthony, because we're on day 2 of the trial. And I can't imagine this trial is going to go on for long, maybe not more than a week, maybe 2 weeks, we'll see. I have some predictions about what's going to happen, but let's boot this up. This is a 3-minute one by News Nation.
Well, happening this morning, a jury is going to be returning for day 3 of a high-profile murder trial underway in Dallas. This suburb of Frisco, Texas.
Yeah, I'm sorry, day 3. We're on day 3.
In the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a high school track meet. The 19-year-old has pleaded not guilty, and News Nation's Leah Lando is here. Now, you can get us up to speed on everything that jurors have heard, what we can expect. Of course, this is a very racially charged story.
Right, and very emotional day in court, as you can imagine. Jurors expected back in court this morning as testimony resumes in the murder trial of Carmelo Anthony. Friday, jurors heard emotional testimony from first responders, police, and witnesses who were at the track meet where prosecutors say Anthony fatally stabbed 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Investigators say the two teens went to different schools. They didn't know each other before this incident. Prosecutors say that happened under a team tent when Anthony stabbed.
So here's my understanding of the case. It was on a dark and stormy night, and someone got stabbed. Yeah, what I understand was what happened was Carmelo Anthony sort of found himself under a tent where he didn't belong, and the people that belonged under the tent wanted him gone, and that was Austin Metcalf, who would later become the deceased. And he was told to leave, he didn't leave, and then an altercation broke out. I think, and I haven't seen any video to this, but Carmelo is pleading innocence and citing self-defense. So that's what the case is about. It's a sort of a claims of self-defense on behalf of Carmelo Anthony. And here's what I do remember from the start of it is a lot of people were running to TikTok pretending to be like insiders that knew information. They didn't know shit. Like, one of the first things that came out, I think, was that he was unalived with a cleat sharpener. Right? Like, a cleat sharpener is one of the first things that was misinformation. Today, that disproved that and dispelled that BS immediately. Turns out it was a big knife, I think. But, yeah, they were saying it was a cleat sharpener. Something that literally doesn't exist. There's no such thing. You get 2 types of cleats, maybe 3. You got your track cleats, that usually use some type of metal. So a big sharp metal pointy thing. And then you got cleats that are made out of like plastic. So the dig in is the plastic. You don't sharpen that. You can't sharpen that. And as for the metal bits on the track cleats, you just remove those and replace those. Like, they unscrew.
Metcalf in the chest. Metcalf later dying at the hospital. Anthony was arrested and charged with murder. A Memorial High School track coach testifying that a team tent serves as a school's designated area during competition. So they compared it to a team bench in other sports. And he told jurors, quote, "You just don't go into someone else's tent uninvited." A Frisco firefighter school track coach testifying a team bench in other sports.
I mean, allegedly the accused was seeking refuge from rain. Apparently it was raining. Kinda. There have been reports that the rain was kind of light. and it forced a delay in the game or something, but I think it came out that that wasn't necessarily the case.
And he told jurors, quote, "You just don't go into someone else's tent uninvited." A Frisco firefighter paramedic testifying that when he arrived, Metcalf had no pulse and appeared gray. Jurors also watching body cam video from school resource officers who responded to the scene that day. And one officer testifying that after Anthony was taken into custody, he heard him say, quote,
Yeah, keep in mind, they haven't released anything on this. Like, I think they wanted to keep the jury pool as untainted as possible. And another thing I heard that came out that was reported on, there were no black jurors. Like, there were black, in the jury pool, there were black jurors present to pick from. But both the defense and the prosecution, there's no black jurors on the jury panel. That's the information that came out, I think came out yesterday.
"I'm not alleged. I did it." In another video, Anthony can be heard saying, "He put his hands on me. I told him, don't put his hands on me." One officer testifying saying Anthony appeared emotional, at times sobbing while in custody. Another school resource officer testifying that a student witness helped investigators recover a knife near the scene, but they say that rain did complicate collecting the evidence. Jurors listening in to a 911 call from a teen witness who reported, "My friend just got stabbed. My friend is bleeding everywhere." The testimony and video evidence prompting, of course, emotional reaction inside the courtroom, including from members of Metcalf's family. And court scheduled to resume this morning. It is not yet clear.
This whole thing is kind of stupid. Like, 2 lives ruined, right? Austin Metcalf, deceased. The family members probably had their life ruined to some degree by this, I can imagine. And of course, if Anthony is, if Karmelo Anthony is found guilty, well, he's going to prison for God knows how long. But I don't know. I reserve my judgment. I haven't seen much of video footage, and I've heard very little testimony. We might get some of that today. Some reports on the testimony. But my prognosis, it's not looking good for Karmelo. It's just not. It just isn't.
Though, which witnesses will take the stand? The trial expected to continue throughout next week. Anthony facing life in prison if convicted. Just an emotional hearing.
Whoa. Bro, like, I don't think this trial's going to last more than... I think it'll wrap up by the end of next week. We'll see. We'll see. Let's go on to another freaking video. This one I wanted to look at. It's a little bit longer, but there's more information in this one.
Texas for our next story as the courtroom on the second.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we do innocent before innocent until proven guilty. That's just the way it is. We do it around here, folks. But I think he's 100%. I think he's 1,000% screwed on this one.
Day of testimony in the Karmelo Anthony trial has adjourned. The former Frisco Independent School District student is accused of fatally stabbing another student at a high school track meet. Karmelo Anthony faces a murder charge in the death of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. Police say Anthony and Metcalf got into an argument over seating in the stadium stands on April 2nd, 2025, which escalated when Anthony stabbed Metcalf in the chest with a pocket knife. Here to break it all down for us, day 2.
Wait a minute. I'm hearing 2 reports about a knife. Is it saying it's a pocket knife now? I think they get into it a little bit more. Hold on.
Amelia Jones. Amelia, what can you tell us?
Hi there, Alex. The prosecution called multiple students to testify during the afternoon session of court. Those students were there at the track meet that day. They were either under the Memorial High School tent or nearby. Now, many of these students are minors, so this was really difficult for them to describe and relive what happened. Many of the students also interviewed with police detectives for the initial investigation, and the defense brought those police transcripts. They also testified that Anthony did not move and kept his hand inside his backpack. Multiple witnesses told the court they heard Anthony say, "Touch me and see what happens." The description of the physical altercation between Metcalf and Anthony differed between witnesses. Some witnesses demonstrated to the jury they saw Metcalf use one hand. Others testified they saw Metcalf use both hands when he touched Anthony. Some used lighter terms.
Yeah, see, that's good. That's going to be the important part, because you're not going to be able to claim self-defense unless the other party touched you. And even then, even then, we'll find out. I'd almost like it to be wrapped up even sooner. And it might. I could see this being over by Thursday. Probably not, but we'll see.
Such as nudge and touch. Others used grab and shove to describe the force behind the physical confrontation.
It's not unreasonable that these teenagers would have differing views. They were probably all in fight or flight and having trouble, processing what happened at that time.
Allison Richardson is a principal trial consultant, not involved in the case. She says the jurors are going to consider what a reasonable person would do in the situation. But the testimony from the students is something the prosecution could bring up again.
I don't know. At this point, I hate to be that person that says 50-50 on this, but I don't know. Like, I always thought, if you remember OJ, there was this juror that came out and said basically, she said she put not guilty, but not on the merits of the evidence, just on the merits of him being black. So, but the fact that there's no black jurors, I don't know. Could be a hung jury, could be guilty all around.
Closing arguments.
There's no doubt in my mind the prosecution will address this testimony because it's vital in considering whether or not he acted in self-defense or not.
In cross-examination of the witnesses, Anthony's defense team asked the teenagers to indicate their location on a diagram of the bleachers at Kirkendall Stadium, then indicate where Metcalf and Anthony were. The defense honed in on the physical comparison between Metcalf and Anthony. One witness testified Metcalf had, quote, 50 to 60 pounds on Anthony.
But we don't know the other side of the story yet. And what these jurors...
Yeah, the defense is supposed to be put up next few days, I think. Maybe even today. I could be wrong.
Jurors have agreed to do is to listen to both sides of the story. And so we may see some surprises in that testimony next when the defense opens, and we may not.
Friday morning, the jury watched multiple police body camera videos. Frisco ISD School Resource Officer Eduardo Cortez took the stand and testified he was the one who took Anthony into custody. The jury watched his body camera video that showed Cortez radio to dispatch that he had, quote, the alleged suspect in custody.
I assume we'll get all this after the trial. I just assume that most of this will be released to the public. Maybe. I assume. Why wouldn't it? But I do know that they probably kept it out of there just to keep the jury pool as clean, as untainted as possible.
Then you hear Anthony on the video tell Cortez, I'm not alleged, I did it. Anthony appeared to get emotional in the body camera video and goes on to say, he put his hands on me, I told him not to. The jury was also shown pictures of the knife used in the stabbing. It was found 3 to 4 rows from the crime scene tape in between some bleachers. But the most gut-wrenching moment was when the jury saw another police officer's body camera video that captured first responders doing CPR on Metcalf at the bottom of the bleachers. Cav's twin brother, Hunter, is seen sobbing on the ground of the track field. He's heard on one of the body camera videos yelling, "That's my best friend, that's my brother."
Oh yeah, I forgot. They were twins.
Very difficult and emotional.
I think, aren't they? I thought they were twins.
Moment for those in the court, especially Metcalf's family. The prosecution ended each testimony of the students with a similar set of questions. Did the witness believe the stabbing was self-defense? Did Austin Metcalf
look like Dingo.
He wanted to fight?
She did a Dingo.
Who was the aggressor? From my notes in court today, the witnesses were consistent in their answers. They testified that they did not believe the stabbing was self-defense. They did not believe Metcalf wanted to fight, and they identified Anthony as the aggressor. Court will resume tomorrow. Testimony is set to begin at 9 a.m. Back to you.
Amelia Jones with Fox 4 Dallas. We appreciate your reporting as always in this. Let's bring on defense attorney Jeremy Rosenthal to discuss what happened in the courtroom today. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for joining us here on Live Now.
Thank you for having me.
So we know that today Metcalf's
Is this the defense attorney?
teammates testified in the courtroom. How did they describe the moments
No
leading
way.
up to the stabbing?
No way. I think this is just a consultant. There's no way the defense would be talking. Oh, I don't know why. I had a Dingo moment. That was stupid.
You heard a really consistent story. I think we heard from roughly six witnesses who were there under the tent, and functionally, Carmelo Anthony comes underneath the tent. There was a lot of rain that day, and so there had been a delay. Carmelo Anthony comes and takes a seat. He greets a friend, is sitting with a friend. By all accounts, not doing anything, not bothering anybody. And he was asked to leave multiple times. It was not his team's tent. The coach had instructed the other team members, we're not going to let anybody else sit under here. And everybody's testimony was consistent.
Yeah, I mean, typically it's that team's tent, so you're only going to want that team's members under that tent, right? Just because, there's, possible theft. People keep their bags, they keep their phones under there since it's, it's raining, obviously. I mean, stuff like this, stuff gets stolen all the time at these events. It just does.
That Austin Metcalf sort of took exception to it. There were varying accounts of how Austin Metcalf approached Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony was sitting down at all times. Nobody testified really any differently, at least until after the stabbing. And there was a lot of testimony that Carmelo Anthony had his hand in a bag and was essentially threatening and saying, if you touch me and you'll find out. And there was some discussion too about whether or not he had something in the bag. One witness testified that he thought that there might be something in the bag and told Austin Metcalf to leave Anthony alone. But most people said they didn't believe anything was in there. In fact, one person testified that Austin Metcalf said, "This is Briscoe, and so I know you're not carrying anything in there." Then the testimony again varied, just like the reporter said.
What was the issue? Why was he there? I mean, from what I hear, he was just trying to get out of the rain. But I mean, it's the team's tent. What are you doing? What are you doing, man?
Varying accounts of how Austin Metcalf made contact with Carmelo Anthony. It was described as a push, as a shove, kind of a linebacker drill, if you will, where one player pushes the dummy, the tackle dummy, sort of up and out. So there were varying degrees of force from what it sounds like. But Austin Metcalf, everybody agreed, was standing. Carmelo Anthony was sitting, and then Carmelo Anthony.
There were also reports from the TikTokers that were spreading misinformation that they were a group of people just ganging up on Anthony. Like, that's some of the misinformation that's come out, and I think in this trial they've basically debunked all that crap.
Reacted by stabbing Austin Metcalf.
And we've known that defense is trying to argue that Anthony was acting in self-defense. Describe to us the approach from the defense attorneys trying to argue this.
She did a dingo.
Cross-examination today.
She literally did a dingo.
I think
to argue this during cross-examination today.
I think the prosecution scored a lot of emotional victories today, but in doing so, they left themselves, I think, really vulnerable to a lot of legal attack. And you can see the defense sort of, they care about what they care about and they don't care about what they don't care about. We saw a knife. We saw the knife that was recovered and there's blood on the knife. But we're not debating how much blood was on the knife because it doesn't really matter when you're talking about self-defense. So the defense was very particular in setting up, where was Austin Metcalf? Where was he standing? Where was he going? Was he standing? Was Carmelo Anthony sitting? They're trying to make the danger that Carmelo Anthony was facing real. That's their entire challenge here. At one point, they sort of demonstrated through a law enforcement school resource officer. What they did was they asked, can hands be a deadly weapon? Can hands cause serious bodily injury?
And yeah, they can technically. I mean, it depends on a case by case, but yeah, that's definitely true. So there's going to be that's going to be the challenge for the prosecution, I imagine. But I don't know. This whole thing this is wild. And this happened a year ago. It's literally a year ago. Yeah, I don't see this trial going on for very long. I'm calling it. Big Dingo prediction. It's going to be over by maybe Thursday. Maybe even sooner.
Elevating the danger through just an assault, and the police officer had to agree with them. So they're able to sort of keep their trial theory intact. That's what you try to do in a case that's sort of where the facts are really so confined, where everybody sort of testifies about the same.
Hi, my name is Tammy, and I would like to give you a few reasons why you should consider dating a young Asian.
Whoa. What the hell are I tell you what, I've been getting a lot of like AI. Damn. I've been getting a lot of like AI boot camps, not AI, but boot camps for like coding and programming. And I'm like, gosh, man, I don't even know how this field, like there's going to be high competition in this field. I don't know. I was considering it, but I'm still going into HVAC.
Trying to point out some inconsistencies between the testimony in the courtroom today and previous statements that some of the witnesses have given to police. But I do want to move on here to some other witness testimony.
I know what you guys are saying. You've been on those dating apps. I literally haven't. That ad came out of left field. I've never seen anything like that.
That we have not touched on quite yet. Of course, Jeremy, there is no cameras in the courtroom, so the folks sitting in the courtroom for us are really the eyes and the ears.
They got it locked down. Like there were reports that there were some people snooping around the courtroom with cameras trying to get a picture of the jurors, and that could become a factor. That could actually ruin the trial. Could have a mistrial.
In this case, what happens with these legal proceedings? Jeremy, jurors watched body camera video of Anthony's arrest. What stood out to you in that video, and as the officer who arrested Anthony testified?
The main debate when it came to the arrest video was Karmelo Anthony's emotional state. And that has a direct correlation because there's probably going to be a debate in this case between manslaughter, unintentional murder, or...
Yeah, I think they charged him with first degree, actually. And people are saying that's an overcharge. That might play a factor into how this case ends up. Like, if they beat that charge, I think it's going to be over. Karmelo will walk, if that's the case. But I don't know. Like I said, I got to stay 50-50 on this one.
First degree murder. So Karmelo Anthony's excitement, his state of mind, I think is really, really important. And what we saw on the video was that it really varied. At one point at the very beginning of the video with the officer, you can hear Karmelo Anthony almost sort of hysterically say, "He touched me." And so he was really kind of in a panic state. This would be maybe less than a minute after the stabbing that the officer actually made contact with him. And so, I mean, the prosecution tried to point out, like I said,
50-50 on this, but I'm leaning towards more like there's going to be a conviction.
Effect might have been sort of flatter, somewhat quickly thereafter.
And there could be a juror on there that just says not guilty for the hell of it. I mean, we've seen that before. We have seen that before, but the defense and the prosecution are pretty good at weeding out biased jurors.
Flat while he was in the squad.
And also the fact that they kept a lot of this evidence out of the view of the public, because, like I said, it's just probably a good idea to do that, especially with a big case like this, highly publicized. It's a big case.
So sort of the game within the game when it came to his to that particular piece of video was sort of the defense trying to show that, look, he was really hysterical before. He asked, was this guy okay?
And even if they get a successful conviction, Karmelo Anthony has no priors. He doesn't have a record. Like this was just a kid when he did it, when this happened.
And then he was still hysterical in the car. The prosecution did their best to try to flatten that out and sort of make it sort of less emotional, right? But again, that all sort of relates to the charge of manslaughter as compared to first degree.
Okay. So they're not going for the first degree. Okay. That was just some misinformation I heard earlier, I guess. Okay, well, that makes more sense.
Homicide case, we don't pay as much attention to that. We're all paying attention to the self-defense charge, but that was sort of the main takeaway from that initial video.
Let's take a look here. I wanted to look something up while I'm here. Bring this up. Maybe Yahoo won't fail me today. manslaughter. If I can spell manslaughter versus first degree murder. Yes, okay. So, what's the difference? We'll go to legal clarity for this. It says first degree murder is the intentional premeditated killing. I don't think they can. I think that would have been insane to charge him with. The person planned it and carried it out deliberately. Manslaughter, by contrast, covers unalivings where that level of intent is absent, either because of extreme emotion overwhelmed the person's judgment or because the unaliving was entirely unintentional. The practical difference is staggering. First degree unaliving can mean life in prison or the death penalty. Didn't they say that's what he was facing? He was facing up to maybe a life, which isn't necessarily doesn't mean you go to prison for, your whole life. It's like let me ask again. I'd like to say is like 30 years, maybe 45, maybe less. Life sentence in Oklahoma. Yeah, right. Okay. Life sentence. Okay. Well, maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe it says a life sentence is rarely exactly 25 years, while some specific intermediate sentences are defined as 25 years to life. Okay. Well, there you go. I was wrong. I was totally wrong. Totally mogged.
And Jeremy, you've talked quite a bit about the emotion that jurors are seeing from some of this video and some of this evidence from that day in 2025. But I'm curious about today and yesterday. What has Anthony's demeanor been like in the courtroom?
There's not been a lot of emotion there from him. I think he's been coached probably pretty well. He's wearing a suit that looks sharp on him. He's been very well composed. There's not been a whole lot of emotion during the time when some of the video was playing.
Let's go. I do remember there was some GoFundMe set up for his legal defense, but I heard some shenanigans around that. Like the family were tendering that they had used the money for cars or something like that. How much did he raise? Let's go find out. I keep forgetting how much he actually raised. Let's see here. GoFundMe. Karmelo Anthony. Taken down? Alright. It may have been taken down already. Here it is. Or at least this is the official fund. And they raised, the goal was $1,396,725 USD, but it raised 622,000. I could have sworn they raised more. I thought they did. Let me go find, because this doesn't seem like. Let's see here. Where was it? There we go. GoFundMe. Anthony's family set up a crowdfunding campaign on GiveSendGo to pay for legal defense, raising $515,000. GoFundMe crowdfunding campaigns were launched by Metcalf's father and the owner of the pizzeria in Frisco. Metcalf worked part-time, raising nearly $250,000. Okay. Misinformation. The family's attacked online after news claimed that he was living in a luxurious $900,000 house. However, their family have not been shown. So that may have been misinformation. It sounds like it may have been misinformation, but this is also Wikipedia. Fog of war, folks. Fog of war information. I don't know. We might have to come back to that one. Put a pin in it.
The prosecution called 4 witnesses. They called 6 overall students. 4 of those witnesses were African Americans. 4 students testified that were African Americans. I don't know if that was intentional.
I didn't know that.
Intentional. The prosecution did address in open court the race issue through one of the witnesses. If there's an issue here, if as a lawyer I have any concerns, day 1 of the trial, several days ago, there were 3 challenges for under what's called Batson versus Kentucky. That's the case that says that you cannot.
Okay. All right.
Exclude a juror because of race. When you challenge another lawyer on that, that's just, there's just no nice way to put it.
Now, I saw on TikTok there were some user accounts on there saying they basically had Anthony's back whether he was guilty or not. Like they're running with that line. We might look at that in a bit.
That's a middle finger to another lawyer.
Like the culture war divide has never got any more sharper. But I think a lot of these accounts are actually grifters.
When you make a Batson challenge against them, that's a very serious charge that you're essentially taking racist actions in the courtroom. The judge overruled those objections, but you have a jury that is diverse. However, there are no African Americans on that jury. And if I have a concern about the public perception of the proceedings, it's that I'm concerned that I'm concerned that some folks might undermine the outcome regardless of what it is at this point for that reason alone. But race is really certainly at the forefront, I think, of a lot of people's minds when it comes to this case.
We've certainly covered.
Yeah, let me check something real quick. There was something else I wanted to look at. Savannah Hernandez actually did a on the ground a day ago, 2 days ago, and I wonder if she posted it. I don't know. I don't see it. Let me go to her page, Savannah Hernandez. She usually posts on YouTube, but she also likes to post to Twitter. Oh yeah, Sav says, here she is. No, I don't think so. Yeah, I don't see it. It was on Twitter, but I can't get Twitter video to work. We might seek out.
Shocking and emotional testimony today in the Karmelo Anthony murder trial. We are one of the only media outlets in the courtroom for one of the biggest trials of the year. A teen track star, Karmelo Anthony, is charged with first-degree murder. He is accused of stabbing and killing fellow track athlete Austin Metcalf at a track meet. A haunting body cam video captured the chaotic aftermath of Austin Metcalf, who arrested Karmelo Anthony, and he says that he heard the teen say, quote,
so this is
I did it. When talking about
let's see, this is actually from today, 16 hours ago. Is that necessarily true today? It's probably an update from yesterday.
To Austin Metcalf.
Like they're in trial right now, as I understand. Deliberating, prosecuting, putting up a defense. Man,
now these are sketch.
Biggest trial this year. It's been more than a year since it's happened, I think.
From today inside the courtroom. Again, no cameras allowed, no audio recording allowed. So we have artist Pat Lopez putting these together for us. Now, the issue that jurors are deciding in this case is whether the stabbing was a murder. Today, a member of Austin Metcalf's track team told the court that Karmelo Anthony provoked Austin Metcalf. And today was the first time.
Well, that's not good for, that doesn't sound good for Mr. Karmelo Anthony. Like, full-on testimony could debunk the whole I was defending myself claim. I don't know. It's gonna get pretty ugly, I think, in the next few days, actually, or at least in the next week.
Teens who witnessed the brutal stabbing. And today, it was an emotional day in court. Court just let.
And remember, I think there might be some activist groups out there, you know, certain like BLM-ish groups out there. They're gonna, if this kid is convicted, oh yeah, I think you're gonna see something on the streets.
Out, Cody Thomas from Court TV, one of the few members of the media actually witnessing all of this. So truly, our eyes and ears inside a courtroom where we can't record. Can't use audio, can't use video.
That's another reason they're trying to keep the court clean right now, because the judge did order, like, you know, no cameras, no nothing. Because they don't want people getting to the jurors. They don't want people intimidated. They want a nice, clean trial. I don't blame them. Some people on the right were actually poo-pooing the judge's decision not to televise it. But, you know, my initial thought was, I don't know. It's not all about trying to sweep things, because that's what they were claiming. I'd rather think that the powers that be want the cleanest trial ever, and they definitely want no shenanigans, no big shenanigans.
Cody, thanks for being here once again. There's a lot I want to get to, but let's start with the body camera video that was shown in court today. What did you see?
Yeah, Chris. So they came out of the gate with that. There were two different officers that testified. So we had two different angles of the body cam. But the first officer is actually the officer that made the arrest. He was an SRO. He's in his office and he gets the call there's been a stabbing at the stadium. So he's running out there, seeing what's going on. Of course, he's seeing the frenzy of students running in every which way. And then he's asking, where's the action at? Where am I going here?
I think I'm going to skip ahead because I do talk about the weapon.
You see graphic in nature, the chest compressions being done on what we now know to be Austin Metcalf's lifeless body. You saw a little blood around. You just see him just kind of, splayed out, and you hear a bunch of, the kids yelling out, "That was my brother. They stabbed my brother. That's my best friend." And, all this different stuff. And we heard a 911 call made by the students. So we heard a lot of audio visuals today, Chris. Very graphic in nature, real emotional. And, I'm sitting 2 rows behind the Metcalf family every single day. I could reach out and touch his father. That's how close he is to me. And, for the majority of the day, he's just holding his head in his hands, just taking in all the facts. I mean, he's been...
I'm going to skip ahead. It gets a little emotional. And we ain't got time for emotion around here. I want to hear the facts. Because that's how it goes.
That's interesting, Chris, because I was...
I'm trying to base my predictions off of what I hear so far. And unfortunately, it doesn't sound too good for Mr. Anthony.
I'm right here in the Metcalf camp. But I try to, keep my head on a swivel, not only to the jury, but over on that side of the courtroom as well. And it's just very stoic. It's just very... the blade is not going to bend on...
Stoic. He's iDubbbz coded now. He's taking a book out of iDubbbz.
This one. And
the book of iDubbbz.
Why did you have... If you had any sort of blade, I don't know what it would have been for, maybe to cut some rope or what have you, but...
Okay, wait.
A little bit excessive, but...
This is it.
3.5-inch blade.
Whoa.
Seeing that and then how it worked into...
Okay, so here they talk about the blade, which literally debunks the whole cleat sharpener nonsense that TikTokers were throwing out.
What prosecutors are alleging.
So the big takeaway from the knife, Chris, is that it has a 3.5-inch blade. It looked like a heavy duty knife. It's not what I expected it to look like. I'm sure you have too, plenty of different styles of pocket knives, but this one just looks like just one of the ones that won't break when you try to cut something,
So he didn't have a machete. Got it. This is kind of what I expected. It was just like this pocket knife-esque, but serrated edges, perhaps.
Like the blade is not going to bend on this one. And it just left me wondering, why did you have, if you had any sort of blade, I don't know what it would have been for, maybe to cut some rope or what have you, but this one seemed a little bit excessive, but neither here nor there.
Gas station blade.
When they brought the knife up there, they had one of the officers come down and they did a little demonstration.
Finest steel tire blade, made out of the finest rims.
With it because it's one of those folding pocket knives where the blade folds down into the handle. And before they did the
forged in the fires of Michelin Man
demonstration, the prosecutor asked the officer, "You carry something similar like this at work?" And the officer was like, "Yeah, as a tool for cutting seatbelts, and people get in car crashes and things like that. So it's a pretty heavy-duty, sharp knife." But then they did the demonstration, and they pulled it out, normally like you would.
Like you could buy these blades at any gas station. I've seen them sell them, or you could get them. You probably got it online too. Maybe it was one of those utility knives. They're pretty expensive. You can pay anywhere from like $15 at a gas station to like $40 online.
Handed. But it has this thing on it, Chris, called a thumb stopper. And it's like a little thing that sticks off the side of the blade where you can just pick it out with one hand. Not to be
but definitely not a cleat sharpener.
Confused with a switchblade, nothing like that. But just showing how fast you could, just whip it out if you wanted to. And, that's where the prosecution was alluding. Like, he already had his hand in the bag. Maybe he already realized what he wanted to do and pick a fight. So if and when Austin Metcalf shoved him in the shoulder, he just, took it out really quickly. But the reaction to the knife, it definitely fits. It fits the prosecution's narrative. It definitely looks like one of those knives that could penetrate deeply if, stabbed with enough force. But again, 3.5 inches, Chris, you got to realize that's another part of it. One of the body cams, we saw, he threw the knife in the bleachers before he ran off. That's what we were hearing about.
Damn.
And, hit up in the bleachers, metal on metal, made a big clanking sound. One of the students told the officers where it was. And you see one of the officers walk up because he was kind of...
So I want this trial to be over as soon as possible, whatever the outcome. Because I'd like to see the evidence, and I assume it will probably be handed over to the public at some point in the future.
In charge of scene safety, scene security, making sure the evidence wasn't compromised. He looks down, he's like, I found it, I found it. And then he says that
would be the route I would take, just because, like, if if there is a conviction, you know who's going to be starting some shit. You know who. There might be rioting in the streets. And so if you release this evidence to said public, it might assuage certain groups out there where they don't really have much of a reason to do what they might be encouraged to do.
Evidence on it. It's one thing, we expected the blood naturally, but bone evidence, you couldn't really see it because it was raining that day. But I mean, in person, he clearly saw it for him to make that statement. So definitely a sizable knife there, Chris, when they showed that on the screen.
Cody, I think one thing that is also important to note is just how quickly all of this went down. It is, from what's been told by witnesses and some of the EMTs, I mean, Austin Metcalf may not have even realized that he had been stabbed in those moments. And it just kind of speaks to the chaos of everything. And I keep going back to that word chaos because that's truly what it was. And today, for the first time, we heard from some of the students, some of the teammates of Austin Metcalf who were there under this tent. There was like 5 or 6.
I had always assumed there was some type of... Now, here's the thing. Security footage, some camera may have caught what was going on, but that might be hard to get. It might not even exist. It might be hard because it was raining anyway and you can't really see anything. So I wouldn't necessarily expect to have that necessarily.
Of them who spoke. And there were some common themes to what they said. These are state witnesses brought by the prosecution. What were some of the things that stood out to you just on their account of what they saw that day?
Well, Chris, one of the main commonalities, the common denominators between them all is what you just pointed out, the speed at which it happened. All of them said that they didn't even realize what had happened because it had happened so fast. I mean, including Austin Metcalf himself. They said when the stabbing happened, they said they looked at Austin and he was just stumbling back and he just, was doing, a motion like this. And then he pulled his shirt up and that's when they saw the gaping wound. But not one of them said they even saw a knife. So that was one thing, Chris. The biggest commonality between them all is that they all said Karmelo was the aggressor. They all said they were sitting under the tent and he walks up and just sits under there.
Well, I mean,
didn't say anything really to anybody.
A 3-inch blade, it's not Crocodile Dundee. And everything's raining. It could be hard to see anything.
One person said that he shook hands with another teenager there, but even when he did that, he just sat down and wasn't talking to anyone. Didn't ask, hey, can I sit here? Hey, what's going on? And of course, they kept diving into the tent culture, at track meets where each tent is pretty much alluded to as a locker room for each team, and you wouldn't hang out in the opposing team's locker room. And they also said their coaches didn't really allow it. If the coaches saw somebody from an opposing team, like Karmelo was from Centennial High School sitting under the Memorial High School tent, that just would not have been allowed. So all of them say, who was this kid? One described him as a random kid who just came down from the top of the bleachers, sat down. Questions started circulating like, who are you? What's your name? What are you doing here? And that's eventually when they say, Austin Metcalf stood up because he was looked at as a leader of the team, looked at as a team captain. He was the captain on the football team as a linebacker. And a lot of, there's a lot of translation between football and track athletes. So they're all kind of one big family. And they say he stood up and all of them said that Austin started off calmly. Hey, man, what's going on? You shouldn't really be here. Just get off from under the tent.
Yeah, so that's going to help the prosecution, especially when the defense pulls up the self-defense motion or, their whole self-defense strategy. Yeah, I'm calling it. I bet you anything by the end of the week we'll have a conviction. And then next month, the sentencing. That's how it usually goes, at least.
Not in any aggressive way. Everything was calm. And they said Karmelo was just like not responding, just saying no, or if you want me to move, you're going to have to make me move. Just, being real adamant about not leaving the tent. And so eventually they said Austin started getting a little frustrated. People, other people under the tent started getting frustrated. Others were chiming in. Some of the people on the witness stand, some of the students testified to that they were chiming in also. Like, what are you doing here, man? Like, and none of them said any cussing was going on. They asked specifically, was there any profanity, any cussing? They're like, not that I remember. So
So he's literally just playing it like Rosa Parks, like a millennial. No, a Gen Z. What generation are we at? I don't know. Maybe Rosa Parks was a scam, though.
It wasn't a nasty altercation, but just a frustrating one. And so the students did admit that Austin started getting a little heated. Karmelo started getting a little heated. But then they started talking about Karmelo's hand in the bag. And then all of them said that same thing that we've heard, Chris, the phrase, touch me and find out. Touch me and you see what happens. And, they started talking about how here in Frisco, Texas, here in Collin County, this is, suburban, fantasy land. Like this, none of this happens out here. All of them were saying the same things, that they would not have expected someone to bring a knife to a track meet on school grounds. They have never heard of anything like that.
Right, and their whole policy with that is no weapons allowed, I imagine. Some people in the TikTok land were claiming that this didn't even happen on school grounds, which immediately debunked
They weren't
by this
expecting
trial.
anything like that. I mean, imagine being 14, 15, 16, and you're not thinking about somebody having a knife in a book bag, to the point where they said Austin looked at him and said, "Oh, you don't have anything in that bag," like calling his bluff, pretty much. He had his hand in the bag and thought, "You don't have anything in there. We live in Frisco. You aren't going to do anything." And they say that's when Austin walked up, and, that's where the inconsistency comes in. Was it a hard push? Was it a one-handed push? Whatever it happened, they say that's when the stabbing happened so fast. And another thing they all said, Chris, was that it was, it was a little bit of a commotion, but they all
Now,
said
one
they
thing,
did not even expect
since it sounds like it happened Texas. I might have to eat my words. If there is a conviction, there might not be a lot of rioting or anything or shenanigans going on just because it's Texas. You don't pull that stuff in Texas.
Fight to happen. One girl testified, and she was at the tent next to it at Liberty High School, maybe 20, 30 feet away. She heard the argument going on, but she thought it was just boys being boys, so she went to go watch the 3200 race. And by the time she walked down to the fence, Austin was stabbed. And, the prosecutor asked her, if you're a teenager, if you expected a fight, teenagers are going to pull their phones out. We've seen fights before in high school. It's like watching a wrestling match.
Oh, yeah.
You're not going to turn away from that.
That's another thing. Like, we might not have security footage, but I wonder if there exists any footage of this. Like, people tend to pull out their phones when they see something happening. Maybe not.
But everyone seemed to turn away. People were on their phones scrolling TikTok, scrolling Instagram, not really concerned with what was happening. They heard it happening, but it wasn't to the point where they thought this would be the result here.
Yeah, and it's just, you think, too, for all these kids who are testifying today, these teenagers, I mean, they've probably lived and thought about this moment, going into this courtroom, facing Karmelo Anthony and saying this ever since this happened more than a year ago. The defense today handle these witnesses that the state put on the stand?
Yeah, Chris, that was one thing that stood out to me when I was sitting in there. I was actively thinking about it as the proceedings were going on, was that under cross-examination, the defense was not really attacking these students aggressively. I don't know if that's a strategy move, given, some of them are minor, some of them have graduated, going off to college here in the fall, but they weren't really going at them as hard as I expected them to. I would imagine you have a couple of teenagers, you're trying to slice and dice their stories, find every inconsistency that you can find. But the thing about it is they were essentially asking the same questions that the prosecution was asking. And the kids were just reiterating what they'd already said under direct.
Yeah, I think the defense is fighting an uphill battle with this one. And I've been saying that it's like, ooh, I don't know that, I don't know what their line of attack would be or a line of defense would be in this case. Like, self-defense, I mean, it's the strongest thing they have, right? It's got to be the strongest thing.
Correct. So it's a very interesting strategy to me, Chris, because, I always looked at cross-examination as you're trying to essentially cross somebody up to go in the favor of your client on the defense's side. So real lack of aggression here, but of course we're only on day 2. We don't know what their plan for their case once that comes around, what that's going to be like. Of course, maybe it'll be more intense than we think. But right now, Chris, it just seems a little pulled back. But we'll have to see as the trial continues.
Yeah, it seems like they're just trying to maybe weather the storm.
Yeah, that's kind of what I think. They could be looking at possible plea deals too. It wouldn't shock me but before this trial was done, they took a plea deal. Like, that's also a possibility that I didn't even think about that till now.
A little bit with these witnesses, because these are witnesses that were under Austin Metcalf's tent. These were Austin Metcalf's friends. And I don't know if the defense has brought that part up. I did notice that they've brought up Karmelo Anthony's size multiple times, that he is smaller than Austin Metcalf. I think Austin Metcalf was like 6'1", 6'2", 215. Karmelo Anthony maybe like 185, right? I mean, I know he played defensive back. I think Austin Metcalf was like a linebacker or a defensive end. So there's like a little size difference, but
yeah,
I don't know. When I hear them talking about Karmelo Anthony's size, like, he was a football player, he was an athlete. I know he was looking to play college football. I just don't know how strong of he was given some weight up to Austin Metcalf when he had
over with. That's definitely over with. I'm not going to play college football now. Like, even if he's exonerated, I don't see how that's going to be a possibility.
The knife, whether that's something that might really resonate.
Like, people would be scared this kid's just going to carry around a knife all the time. Right? I mean, that's donezo for him.
Yeah, Chris, and I hear that too. And actually, they say he's smaller than 185. They say he's around 145.8.
Okay.
So what they're trying to do, yeah, I mean, I look at him and he looks like an average size kid when I walk past him. Clearly, a little thinner, but he's still essentially a grown man. He's still 18 at this point. He doesn't look like a child. But neither here nor there as far as that, Chris. I think where they're going, they're trying to show some kind of stark disparity. Okay, we got the two twins over here that, again, 6'1", 6'2", 215, burly boys, linebackers, all of this. But they're trying to make them out to seem like these big bullies, I feel. Like, they were asking one of the students on the stand today.
That was in the area where everybody was taking cover because it was coming.
Or intimidate bullies, I feel. But neither. We got the two twins over here that, again, 6'1", 6'2", 215.
Yeah, and this is sort of the TikTok narrative, is that Karmelo was bullied. But I don't know. I don't think that was the case.
Early boys.
That's sort of the TikTok narrative. So, we're talking bullshit most of the time.
Linebackers, all of this. But they're trying to make them out to seem like these big bullies, I feel. Like, they were asking one of the students on the stand today, well, if you were to walk up on Austin Metcalf, would you feel threatened or intimidated? And he just responded. He was like, I don't know about intimidated. He was like, I probably wouldn't pick a fight with him, but it wasn't like he was, walking up like a giant and being, abrasive about things. But I think that's just what they're trying to, they're trying to throw at the wall here, Chris.
I mean, I really do think if it gets, maybe later in the week, maybe Monday, Tuesday, they could be talking. I'd love to be a fly on the wall with that one. Like, with the defense, they might be, I bet you anything, the defense is urging a plea deal.
Aggression on Austin Metcalf's side, trying to aid in that self-defense claim that they're having or presenting.
But I hope not. I hope not. This is just too wild.
For Karmelo Anthony.
This is too insane. Biggest case, biggest trial this year. And people have been waiting for this so they can get it over with. A lot of people just want to get it over with, which I'm kind of in that camp as well. Like, I hope it doesn't go on for like 2 weeks.
Because one other thing that I kind of noticed as well, because I remember when this case first happened and the police kind of laid out this fact that like the track meet had been delayed because of rain, and maybe Karmelo Anthony went into the tent because it was raining, but it also doesn't seem like from the testimony that it was some like monsoon that was in the area where everybody was taking cover because it was coming through.
And actually, one of the things they pointed out is that it wasn't even an actual rain delay. There was confusion. There were athletes warming up. They had put rain delay on the billboard, on the scoreboard, but that wasn't true. It wasn't even official. But as far as the morning goes, it was just a really wet morning. It rained overnight. They say the rain didn't really.
Okay, so this happened in the morning. Okay, so maybe not as much rain. And of course, people having their cell phones out. If they did, it wouldn't be out in the rain necessarily. Right?
Until after.
Right? I mean,
the stabbing happened, because one of the former coaches who actually testified yesterday said he kneeled down. He was the head track coach, actually. He kneeled down with Hunter Metcalf, the twin brother of Austin, to pray, after this happened. Of course, there's a lot of emotion in this moment, a couple of minutes after your brother's been stabbed. And he said as soon as he kneeled down to pray, that's when rain really started to come. But all before that, expected, the women to cry when they heard some things. But Chris, I've seen 2 or 3 of the grown men with Kleenex in their hand, listening to some of this testimony, watching some of this video. So and that was yesterday. That was on day 1 of testimony, and a little bit today.
Okay, yeah. So this is basically day 2. I suspect we'll have more information later on today about it. I'll be asleep. I don't even know if they're back in yet. It'd probably be a later in the day thing, right? Yeah. So I don't predict this trial's going to go on for that long. I'm going to go ahead and click off here and probably close it up. Yeah, 50-50. Innocent until proven guilty. It is what it is. So that's where I land at. But I'm sort of leaning towards the idea that, they probably right now, or maybe a day or two from now, the defense will be talking to the family and Anthony about possible plea deal if it's really this bad. But we'll see. Could go one way, could go another. I'm just excited that, this is coming to an end. It'll bring a lot of closure to people. People will stop talking about it after. Well, it'll be a while before people stop talking about it. It just depends what happens in the case. Like, it'll depend whether he's found not guilty or guilty. And then, you gotta wait another month before you get a sentencing. So that's that. That's that, I guess. 2 lives ruined over something very, very stupid. Like, we're talking astronomically dumb. But it is what it is. I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up stream. I wasn't going to stream for very long today, so I think I'll play us out. And next stream, probably a day from now, 2 days from now, I'm planning on a subathon on either next Wednesday or Thursday. So if you're listening to this after the fact on a segment, please give me a sub, please. We're trying to get to 100 subs. Big 100, and in the description below, there is some information about Discord. I might have to update that information. But I'm going to go ahead and sign out. I'm your host, Dingo, and this has been DingoCast. Appreciate you. Appreciate you if you've shown up. If you're listening to it after the fact, I love you. But give it a sub. If you're not subscribed, give us a sub, ring the bell. Like, dislike, comment down below what you think is going to happen in this trial. You guys have a good one. I am signing off, and you have a good one. Just have a good one. Have a good one for me.